Diagnosis, again, it's not just one high reading of blood pressure that would prompt you to label this person as a hypertensive. There are protocols and they should really be followed to the spirit. Let's not be trigger happy in labeling people with diabetes or hypertension based on single readings. That's most unfortunate. Repeated repeated serial blood pressure measurements are the way to go. Diabetes is based, I beg your pardon. Hypertension is based on an average of at least two or more high blood pressure readings taken at each of two or more visits. So you ask the person to come back. If he or she has come to you once and you had two or more high blood pressure readings in that visit, ask the person to repeat the visit or go home and make a diary of serial blood pressures, and then you study that diary and then repeat the blood pressure readings in your office as well. If all of this leads to a sustained image of high blood pressure, then you should be prone to make a diagnosis of hypertension. And then you have all sorts of lab tests, x-rays, etc., to exclude any secondary cause. So if this person, we're obviously discussing essential hypertension, it doesn't have a cause or probable cause. How do you arrive at that? When you exclude all the secondary causes, then you label this person as a essential hypertensive patient. A leaf from Guyton is very interesting. I've taken this graph as well. So I'll be brief here. You can read this up a little more detailed from your book. Uh, Basically, one of the views, and a very strong view on hypertension, is that people generally uh, are can be divided into two types based on their salt response. So some people seem to be responsive, to be very sensitive to salt, while the others are not much. So the first category, the one who are salt sensitive, they basically they respond to salt much more acutely. So if they take a known amount of salt in their diet and they don't bother with decreasing it, they are prone to become hypertensive much more quicker than the salt insensitive people. We are not saying that salt insensitive people are somehow immune to the bad effects of high salt intake. We are not saying that. We are saying that all of us are sensitive to salt, because salt will increase the ECF volume and lead to higher blood pressure over a long period of time, or a broad period of time. But what we are saying is there are people who are more prone to these changes in response to their salt intake, and then there are people who are less prone to the salt that they take. And this graph is a clear testimony to that thing. The black curve is a normal response to high intake of salt. So he's taken normal intake at point D and then increase the salt in this normal person. It just he just threw this out, the extra salt. As you can see, that salt intake and output statistic, that it's just the curve did not shift anywhere. It just moved nicely vertically along. And when the person was at normal intake, uh, his blood pressure was around 100. And when you increase the diet intake, maybe slightly a few degrees to the right, but negligible really. And where did that extra salt and water go? The kidneys threw it out, because this is a normal person we are talking about. Now we are talking about essential hypertension tension scenario. The two responders. So the red one is the salt insensitive person. So this curve, it got displaced and became the red curve. So this person's response to normal intake, because this person is a hypertensive, is his hypertension is hypertension anyway. And now this person is basically on a normal intake of salt. Now you've increased that normal intake of salt. So the blood pressure would sort of remain in the same category, although if you really look at it threadbare, there's a slight rightward shift, minuscule really. So this person is really salt insensitive. As you can see, that salt did not do much to his blood pressure. However, look at the blue line. the salt sensitive person. So these are the people who are very sensitive to their salt intake. If it was normal, it was less than 150. But as soon as you gave him that same high intake of salt that you gave your normal person and the salt non-responder, this person's BP shot up and went above 150. So clearly, there's a difference between essential hypertensives as salt insensitive people and salt sensitive people.